Wow.
Hey.
Hi.
Hi.
Welcome back to the Island Shuffle.
I'm James.
And me, I'm Bean.
How are you today?
Are you asking me or are you asking the audience?
Both.
Well, I'm all right. I had a day off today,
Hey.
which was nice.
You know what I like to do on my day off?
What's that?
Use the internet.
Oh, well, bad news, buddy. My internet was down all day today.
What?
It is likely going to be still down by the time I get home.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah.
How do you watch things?
Well, luckily I've got a stockpile of downloaded material.
Hey, legally, I hope.
Of course, it's all only the legal torrents.
Only, yeah, exactly.
Only the above board.
You paid
torrents.
for those torrents.
Yeah.
I don't know who I paid.
I know who I paid, but someone's getting profit, so it's
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, it's not. It's not the worst. It actually gives me an opportunity to log off from Twitter.com, which is nice.
Hey, good.
It's very good. I can't tell you how the audience is feeling, but I hope they are ready to hear us talk about the television show Lost.
Lost.
Guess what? If you haven't listened to this show before, we watched the show Lost, ABC's hit show, and we watch it in a random order. Every week we pick a random episode, and every week we watch that random episode, and every week we talk about that random episode. And what the heck? What episode did we roll this week? I wonder.
Oh my goodness. It almost seems too good to be true.
It does, doesn't it?
To me, it's too good to be true because this week we landed on season 1, episode 1.
That's right, baby. Pilot part 1.
Pilot part 1. We
very-
didn't even watch pilot part 2 because
No.
we right to the fucking start
Yeah.
is where I wanted to go.
Yeah, just the very first hour of Lost. That's all. Just the first hour that ever was of this.
No more, no less.
Yeah. No muss, no fuss. This is a show that is gosh, I don't even know where to start with how completely different this show is from
It's
the Lost we
really,
know.
this episode is incredibly straightforward, and I understand everything about it.
And in that respect, it's a pretty excellent pilot, don't you
Yeah,
suppose?
exactly. I
Yeah.
think that's really where they went wrong.
Yeah.
Is if they really started off with all their weird dumb shit,
Yep.
then they could have made a nice 6 out of 10 pilot that
Yeah.
would have prepared me well for the rest of the show.
Yeah, instead they had to go and knock it out of the park at the
Yeah.
start, so that our expectations were unreasonably high.
And you know what? That is what they did. They knocked it out of the park. This was a good episode.
You think this was a good episode?
I think it was a good episode of television.
Okay, that's good. I also agree. I generally I'm not as hot on season 1 as a lot of people, but there's also there's some shit about it that is kind of feels a little like lightning in a bottle sometimes.
Absolutely.
And this pilot kind of strikes that note a bit.
It's like the island is the bottle.
Yeah.
And the characters are the lightning.
Yeah. And also, not only is the lightning the bottle, it's the cork, as we all know.
The island is the cork to heaven and hell.
Yeah.
But thankfully none of that stuff exists.
No, none of that. This is there is only one thing about the pilot that is kind of whoa, this is weird and supernatural almost. Everything else is very much the plane crashes on the island and everybody's dealing with the immediate aftermath of this incredibly traumatic event.
Which is crazy. It's a really so the first 20 minutes of this episode, well, probably 10.
Yeah.
Is just this very gigantic scene where there's an entire plane that is strewn apart on a beach.
Yep.
There's a lot of screaming, hurting people.
Mhm.
Claire thinks she's having a baby.
Yep.
Hurley is not helpful at all.
Charlie
has a hood on.
Yep. He's being angsty. Someone gets sucked into a turbine and it explodes.
It explodes.
At another point, a giant wing of the plane falls down and causes several more explosions.
Yeah, that one I sort of didn't get.
Yeah, that was a little
That
weird.
was a bit too much explosion.
That was a bit on the... They were playing it fast and loose with what needs to explode and what doesn't.
Yeah.
But that whole scene is an extended, long, it's really kind of the centerpiece of the episode. It feels like
absolutely,
because when the very start of the episode, there's obviously no previously on because it's the first episode.
I found it weird.
Yeah, it's disorienting, right?
Because the thing that sort of weirded me out of it was that there hasn't been any episodes of the show before, but we have seen flashbacks from things that happened before the plane crash.
Yes,
and then it started with the plane crash, so they could have done like a previously on.
Yeah, true.
And it's just, get us up to date on these people's lives of it.
Yeah, it would be sick if it was a previously on and it was just like laid out every character's like backstory.
Yeah,
exactly. Backstory. That would be really good.
A nice all I'm asking for is 10-15 minutes.
Just a lean 15.
Just to start it off.
Yeah.
So I know what I'm getting into.
Exactly. I mean, the point of a pilot is to hook you.
Exactly.
So nothing would hook you more than understanding fully the context of every character.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If I don't know the intricate details of every character's life before this moment, how am I expected to even pay attention to the intricate details after this moment?
For instance, the show opens on Jack's eye, and he's kind of just lying in the bamboo forest. Yeah. And he kind of like is getting his bearings. He gets up, he's hurt, and he sees a dog run by. And the whole time I'm thinking, who the heck is this bozo? I don't care.
This guy? Yeah, exactly. I don't care about you.
Make me care.
You're not like a Matthew McConaughey. You're not Reese Witherspoon. You're just some fucking guy.
Now hold on. Does this mean that like... So when you see Matthew McConaughey appear on screen, you take everything that you know about Matthew McConaughey and bring that to his character.
Matthew McConaughey his birth was he was born as like this guy who worked for the city in Dazed and Confused, and that was the first thing that he ever did in his life.
Right, yeah, that tracks.
And later he was a lawyer for a while in the Lincoln Lawyer. Yep. He had an accident, I guess, and that's what sort of fucked him up for the True Detective year. But he got past that.
Yeah, thank goodness.
The guy's been through a lot, and I just thank God every day that now he has car commercials because that looks breezy.
It does look breezy, doesn't it?
That looks so good.
Oh man, you made me think about those car commercials. They're such crazy. They're so.
He like falls into a pool and he's just hanging out. And he just drives the cars and gets paid so much money.
He gets paid so much money to drive the cars, and he just says some like nothing. He says like a nothing. Yeah. He says like words together, but they don't mean anything.
Exactly.
He's just like, well.
It's a really shitty version of like what his character did on True Detective.
Ooh, yeah.
Except this time, rather than like try and do it for the purpose of like art or expression or showing someone in a very bizarre situation. They're doing it to sell cars.
Exactly. And at least on True Detective, kind of the whole point of it was like, oh, this guy's an insufferable asshole.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. This person is awful.
Yeah,
but now it's like,
I
can't afford a Lexus.
Yeah, there's a difference between being like, maybe blunt nihilism, even in a cruel world, is not the best outlook to have, versus maybe a car is okay.
Maybe a car is okay.
Anyways, enough
about Lost.
Back to my favorite television show, Lost. Oh God, I got so stuck on Matthew McConaughey.
So this is the first thing I have written down about it.
Okay.
And the first glaring problem with it is that it very clearly sets up that Jack is going to be the main character.
Oh, it does. Yes.
And I guess that's why a lot of people think that Jack is the main character.
It is
or
interesting.
Why I thought that he was the main character before watching it.
Yeah.
But we have seen through our watching of like the show in jumping from season 4 to 2 to 6, he's absolutely not. And it is more Sawyer than Jack.
I feel confident in saying, at least in the 13 episodes prior to this one, we have seen way more Sawyer than Jack.
Way more Sawyer than Jack. Barely any Jack.
This was the most Jack we've ever seen, I think, in a given episode.
Yeah, by far.
Because he gets up and then he runs through the wreckage, and we see it from his perspective, and he's helping. He lifts some wreckage off of one dude. He helps another dude. He helps, the Claire with her contractions. He helps, push people away from the falling wing. He's, saved like 10 or 12 lives by the time everything settled down. And he very quickly is like taking charge, and he's like, you need to go here. You stay with her. Do this, please. I gotta go over here. You're not doing this CPR thing right. And it's just like very. It's very. You can tell they meant for Jack to be the main character.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is interesting to me.
I think what they fell into after a while was realizing that like they wanted Jack to be the main character, but also they just made him like the responsible one that isn't a fuck up and isn't really weird in any way.
Yes.
And that's just not very interesting.
Exactly. Unlike Sawyer, who we only see here for the briefest of moments. After everything kind of settles down, we kind of get shots of all these characters that, the audience seeing the pilot for the first time would not know. But we, of course...
We know them well.
We know them. We see, Syed and Charlie helping each other make a fire. We see Claire kind of sitting by the beach. We see Locke sitting by the beach. We see Sawyer sitting on a piece of fuselage smoking a cigarette.
Smoking a ciggy.
And that's pretty much all we see of Sawyer in this hour.
That is it. I don't even know if he talks.
I don't think he does say a single word.
But he's still the main character.
He's still the main character in my heart. And in the fact of how the show is.
I'd like to see, I wonder if someone did a rundown of screen time between characters on Lost.
I will admit that we have had, in terms of episodes centering around people.
Yeah. We've had a lot of Sawyer.
We've had a lot of Sawyer. We've had a bit of Kate. We've had no Jack.
No, we have had no Jack-centric episodes.
This is arguably
but I do find that even in episodes where it is centered around someone who isn't Sawyer, he still gets a lot of screen time.
Yeah.
And Jack's screen time is pretty, well, it's definitely less than the main character Sawyer's
I agree. But there's no denying that he's the star of this episode.
He is the star of this episode.
He's front and center.
He was given a golden opportunity, and you know what? He did great. Jack did a really good job.
Yeah.
He saved so many lives.
He was a doctor. He went off to stitch himself up after everything kind of calmed down. And Kate wanders over. You can tell that they mean for Kate to also be a main character as well. So Kate
she had
wanders
a lot of
over.
screen time today.
She did. Kate wanders over, and Jack is like, hey, you gotta help stitch me up. And Kate's very like, I don't know how to
I made drapes once.
I made drapes once. And she's like, that's fine. That'll do. Just stitch me up. And while...
Just pretend I'm a drape. Jack kept yelling that. Yeah. There was a good, 2-minute scene where he just keeps going, pretend I'm a drape!
Sew me!
Sew me! Sew me like a drape! I thought that was a weird choice, but I agree with it in hindsight.
I mean, it really hits you.
Yeah, exactly.
It gives a hint of the kind of show Lost would be, where you can't really predict it.
Exactly.
I just noticed that you're using your phone as a coaster for your beer.
That's a sort of fucked decision.
You have so many other options.
Yeah, I'm like, look, don't wanna form a fucking circle on this particle board.
Yeah, no.
Use my telephone.
Better use the closest available surface, which is my telephone. I guess your only other surface is a book, which would probably also be quite bad for the book.
Yeah, and I really respect literature.
Yeah, I know you do.
Love to read.
Who doesn't? One word after the other, baby.
Yeah, exactly. You don't read the way that we watch Lost.
Yeah, no.
I'll tell you that.
I'll tell you that. You just don't pick random words out of order.
It's
it doesn't
not
quite
gonna work.
It's not gonna work.
Yeah.
You're gonna need a little more context.
Exactly. What else do we got? What else happened? So after that,
they I want to mention that while Kate is stitching Jack up, Kate is kind of visibly freaking out, and in general, both Jack and Kate act really theyll in this episode.
Yeah.
That's
very dramatic, very believable.
You can tell that it's kind of they're taking this opportunity. They're they don't really know what this is gonna be, but they're just we gotta lay it all on the line.
Yeah.
There's a scene later that I want to highlight with Kate, but we're not there yet. I'm so used to watching things out of order that I'm jumping from thing to thing. So while Kate's stitching him up, he says she's freaking out, and she's like, "How are you so calm? You don't seem afraid at all." "I'm absolutely incredibly afraid." And Jack is like, "Well, let me tell you a little story about how I'm a surgeon and how one time I botched a surgery and stuff was getting bad and I was getting real scared, and I decided I would let the fear take a hold of me. but only for 5 seconds, and then I'd get down to business. Which is obviously the behavior you saw him exhibit while dealing with the immediate aftermath of the plane wreckage. So he says, I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and he's doing this while like grimacing through, getting stitched up, and Kate's like also like stitching and stuff. It's a pretty raw scene.
Very raw scene.
It's the first. I think it's the first scene that's like actually like two characters talking and not like screaming over wreckage.
Yeah, it is actually. It is. Which I don't know why they didn't decide to hit up Sawyer for that scene, but
yeah, in hindsight, I think it would have made a lot more sense.
Would have been a lot better if it were Sawyer stitching up Hurley.
That's a scene I want to see.
I think
so. I think Hurley goes through most of the series without taking any too severe of an injury.
Nothing happens to Hurley.
Sawyer gets bedridden at one point. Sawyer's like injured in the hatch at one point, but Hurley never really takes a bullet, takes anything. I think he's too beloved for that.
Yeah, exactly. They never do anything to Hurley.
Hurley should stitch up Sawyer.
Hurley should stitch up the Soy Man.
I want in my fan fiction, Hurley stitches up the Soy Man, and
and then the fog monster comes and pats Hurley on the back.
So after Kate stitches Jack up, everybody's kind of like talking, where shouldn't rescue be here by now? Blah blah blah. Let's get a fire going. Let's gather some supplies. Your basic survival stuff.
Yeah.
That's all happening, and suddenly we hear a big old honking sound coming from the jungle. Sound of crunching, sound of hooting, a lot of and we. Yep,
there's a weird siren aspect to it.
There's a gurgling also. In general, I think it's a really cool sound design. Like it's a really weird and unsettling mix of like, because you have like that weird horn sound, you have that like tick a tick a tick tick a tick a tick. And then you have just like this like gross rumble that sounds like almost like a fart, but not quite.
But just enough like a fart to make you think like, is that a fart?
Is that a fart? And there's enough other things going on that you're like, is that a fart? Well, there's let me pay attention. Maybe.
Yeah,
we'll
it might.
It really hooks you. And you and I recognize those sounds.
Yes.
It's the fucking smoke monster, baby.
The smoke monster is coming. At first, Walt thinks that it's Vincent, their dog, and it's like, what the fuck, Walt? Trees are being toppled right now, and there's this bizarre siren, and his immediate response is to go, is that Vincent?
Is that my dog? I love my dog, who sounds like a fucking, like, adding machine.
Yeah, exactly. Like who is your dog, Clifford?
Yeah. Woo! Sick own on Walt.
Yeah. Fuck you, Walt. Get the fuck out of my show.
He'll be gone. Don't worry. We seen him get taken.
Exactly. I cheered. Take him out of here. This kid doesn't even know what a dog is like. Fucking.
Oh boy. I love to laugh. It feels like it's been a minute since we've recorded, and it feels good to laugh.
Yeah. I haven't laughed since the last episode.
Wow, that's a dark time.
Yeah.
Anyways, so Smokey does that. Everybody's just kind of like, what the heck was that? But nothing really comes of it. And eventually, Jack and Kate kind of decide, like, okay, so the plane got torn up midway through it crashing. There's a tail section somewhere out there. There's also a cockpit somewhere out there. Maybe if we go find the cockpit, we can get our hands on some kind of radio gizmo and send for help. And that ends up being after everything kind of settles down, that ends up being the main crux of the last half of the hour.
That's the quest.
That's the quest.
They have a quest.
It's Jack, Kate, and Charlie tags along too. So we get a good look at Charlie, and he's as useless as ever.
Charlie is another character similar to Jack, where it seems like initially they wanted to do a bit more with him, and then after a while they're like, no, this character like isn't half as intriguing as we initially thought he was.
Yep.
Like, he's sort of just like annoying and frustrating.
Yep. He's like, he comes along and he's just like, wow, bet you recognize me from my band. And they're just like, we have people are dead.
Yeah,
we gotta go. We got like
sorry guy.
Yeah.
And then he just is useless the entire time.
Yep. They're like so they get to the cockpit.
You all everybody.
And Charlie sings that song.
You all everybody.
Man, you sing it way better than Charlie sang it.
Yeah, I know. I should be in that band.
You should be Charlie.
Thank you. Acting like those stupid people wearing expensive clothes. You all everybody. You all everybody. Ooh, you all everybody. I'm pretty sure that is the chorus to that.
You really nailed that.
Thank
you. That was a beautiful rendition of
I like that song.
It's not a bad song, eh?
There's a really good I watched like the special features for season 1 years and years ago when that was a thing that people did in the world.
Yeah, back when DVDs were the hot thing.
Exactly. I rented it from the video store.
They're not digital video discs. They're digital versatile discs because they don't just play movies, they play special features too.
Yeah. And songs. But there's this funny interview with one of the writers, and he said that song came about because he was watching like some weird like Maury Povich style show. And this lady got up and started yelling at like the people in the front or something, and she was just yelling. It was mostly incoherence, but one of the things she yelled was like, you all everybody acting like those stupid people, like wearing expensive clothes, and then he just lifted that.
Yep, that's a pretty funny. I would be interested to see that clip because I've also heard that legend told as well.
I want to see that clip. I want to see how she sang it.
Yeah, I would like to set that to music, auto-tune it, and then we get a viral hit on our hands, or at least we would have back in the day when this show was relevant. Anyways, we
would have put it on Google Video.
Yeah, we would have put it on Daily Motion, and we would have really torn up, I don't know, MySpace or some shit.
Yeah.
And on the subject of DVD special features, I also watched these crazy things because I loved the dang show Lost. And I learned that in the scene where the wreckage is flying everywhere, you see a big flaming piece lands right next to Charlie, and he looks over at it. And then he kind of looks down at himself, and you're just kind of like, oh, whoa. Turns out that piece fell much earlier than Q.
No way.
And Charlie was way closer to it than he was supposed to be. I don't think he was dangerously close to it, but he was still, like, the alarm on Dominic Monaghan's face is, like, real.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Wow, good for him.
Yeah. That's my DVD special feature for you.
I wish there was a way that it could have crushed the character Charlie without crushing the actor who doesn't deserve any badness.
That's true. The
The
actor is a nice person, I think.
Yeah,
as far as I know.
I don't really know much about him. I'm not gonna make any statements.
Well, but the problem is that there's no way to crush the character without also crushing the actor.
That's why people don't die in movies.
Yeah, exactly, because it would be unethical.
Yeah, exactly. Game of Thrones is actually one of the leading causes of death in the UK.
Game of Thrones is very, people say they have a moral problem with Game of Thrones. That's what they mean. It's just
exactly.
It just swallows up lives.
You know why there wasn't a 302?
Because those 300 already died.
Yeah, exactly. There were no more actors.
Why wouldn't they just call it 301?
Yeah, Dalmatians. I always had a thing. So 101 Dalmatians.
Yes.
I sort of didn't get it because basically the story is this lady has like 100 Dalmatians and she's just after the last one, right?
Right.
100 Dalmatians is still a lot of dead dogs. Like, you don't need that last one. If she just settled on killing 100 dogs, then she would have been absolutely fine.
Who's killing the dogs?
Oh, they're killing the dogs to make a coat. That's what I thought it was.
That's right. That's the villain of the movie.
Yeah,
does
exactly.
That.
Cruella de Vil.
Okay, I forgot about Cruella de Vil. I just remember. Okay, that makes more sense. I just imagined it was like a wholesome Disney story about like how cool it is to kill dogs.
Let's kill one more dog. But this dog didn't want to be killed. Woof, woof.
Oh boy, Disney's crazy.
I hope that's what it was about. I hope I'm not just like making that up and really fucked.
You can be both, or you don't have to be making that up to be really fucked.
True.
What else was I saying? On the subject of this crazy ass pilot, two things that need to be mentioned about this crazy ass pilot. At the time of its airing, so 2004, it was the most expensive pilot that ever was.
It was like $6 million or something.
Yeah, I think that number's since been surpassed probably, but like at the time it was the most expensive pilot, which is crazy because at the time that was not like a show people thought was going to succeed.
Yeah.
People I think leading up to it, the reputation it had was just that it was expensive. So people were like, what the hell? Why are they spending this much money on a show about people on an island? Who cares?
That's really interesting. I didn't know that was the...
That's why it was such a surprise that it succeeded, because it was like... Because like going into it, people were just like, what do you mean? People crash on an island? I don't understand. What's the hook? What's the deal?
The hook is that it's a bottle cork.
Yeah, the hook is that it's a bottle cork and that all the people are tortured, and riveting character drama and mystery, also suspense.
And Josh Holloway. The hook is that we got Josh Holloway.
Yeah, that's the big hook. As people were like skeptical, and then they saw Josh Holloway's name in the credits, and they were like, all right, I'm listening.
Yeah,
I'm going to tune in.
Hook, line, and stinker.
Man,
that guy smells.
That guy smells really good.
Yeah, really incredible.
He stinks good.
Yeah.
The other thing that needs to be mentioned is that this episode won an Emmy for directing, I think.
Oh, shit.
I mean, the whole season won an Emmy for Best Drama, but I think this pilot won an Emmy, and it was directed by the man himself, J.J. Abrams.
J.J. Abrams.
That's right. So we can't curse JJ's name too much, but we can curse him here because he was directly involved in the directing of this pilot.
And it was fucking good.
And it was fucking good. It's a good pilot. Really, like, the efficiency and the pace of it really, like there's no flashbacks at all. Oh, there's actually one flashback. We see Jack on the plane at one point.
Yeah.
As it crashes.
Just when it crashes.
Yeah, it crashes. He gets a drink from the stewardess, and then, like, the plane crashes.
What else has JJ done that was good? He did the first Star Wars.
Yep, he did the Force Awakens. That was pretty good.
I don't know his stuff really though. I know he did like Alias.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm really unfamiliar with Alias.
Yeah.
I know he did Cloverfield, the first one.
Cloverfield.
I remember liking that back when I saw it way back in the day. I don't know.
Is that the one that's like filmed on a...
Yes.
Yeah. I remember watching it and being like, eh.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I think I read reviews before and I was like, I'm going to think what the reviewers think because that's sometimes fair. I do that.
That's fair. Sometimes you don't know what to think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. JJ has I know people don't like JJ's style because it's very shaky cam, a lot of lens flare, a lot of it's very straightforward Hollywood style. It's not it really doesn't, it's not like super challenging, it's not like the craziest stuff, and I don't necessarily disagree with them in general.
That's fair.
But I mean,
here it works.
In Force Awakens it works. I want nothing short of just straightforward Hollywood from Star Wars.
Yeah, exactly.
So like, I don't know. It doesn't. Sure, I don't. This isn't a J.J. Abrams podcast, so let's not keep. Oh, you know what else he did?
What?
One of those Mission Impossible movies, I think.
Oh, really?
I think
the only one I know is the first one.
The very first one?
Yeah.
Oh, whoa.
I liked that one.
I only know the very, very recent ones, and I remember them being pretty fun little romps.
They are just keeping Tom Cruise. They're just allowing Tom Cruise to have enough money to continue with Scientology.
That is definitely the chief criticism of those movies that I would have. Because Tom Cruise is a wretched man.
He's not a great... I've watched a lot. I've watched 2 documentaries about Scientology recently, and both of them just like tear Tom Cruise apart.
Yeah.
It's fun to watch.
Was one of them Going Clear? Because I saw that in the theaters back when I went to Toronto.
Yeah.
And that movie really fucking made that's a movie where I went like from like Tom Cruise is kind of a wacky guy to being like, hey, fuck Tom Cruise.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah. Anyways.
All right, but back to the island.
Yeah, back to the island. This is not the Tom Cruise podcast, nor is it the J.J. Abrams podcast. It is the Island Shuffle podcast.
Oh, so what? They go to find the cockpit.
They go to find the cockpit.
And they get it, and it's like sort of on a tree. So it's like sort of at a 45-degree angle. They have to climb up.
There's like corpses still in the chairs and stuff.
Yeah.
They're like, it seems like a really physical scene.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much of that is like them really climbing up a 45-degree angle cockpit, or if they just like made them act and like filmed it at a normal angle. I can't really tell. But either way, like the actors like kill it. It seems a lot like they're like exhausted.
Yeah.
Which is cool. And they finally get to the top, and who do they find? But the pilot still in his chair.
Just hanging out.
He's hanging out. He's very injured.
His chair looks like a recliner now.
Mm-hmm. It's very reclined. It's as reclined as it could be.
I think if he reclined back anymore, he'd tip right over.
So they wake up the pilot, and he goes, they tell him, like, there's so many survivors. We haven't had rescue yet. It's been so many hours since we, crashed. And the pilot goes, we were flying from Sydney to LA, and then about halfway through, our radio went out. And so we turned around to land in Fiji because we can't have a radio, and then that's when we crashed. So by the time we crashed, we were way off course, so nobody knows where to look for us. And then he says, oh, and also there's a radio thing over there if you want to go get it. And then we hear the same sounds we heard before, the old monster sounds, the smoke monster sounds, and the smoke monster goes ahead and plucks Buddy from the cockpit and murders the hell out of him.
He just murders the pilot. They killed the pilot in the pilot.
That's why they called it pilot.
Hey. You always got to kill a pilot in the first episode of your show.
It's true. I mean, if you watch the first episode of The Big Bang Theory, you got to kind of watch. You got to kind of like know.
You got to watch.
You got to know where to look if you want to see the pilot die.
You should be watching Sheldon, and you should be watching Penny. And you should be watching. What are the other people's names?
There's Nerd. There's
who's the main guy?
Sheldon's the main guy.
No, but his roommate. I have watched like 3 seasons of this show, like a very long time ago, but I did watch it.
There is a man named Leonard.
Leonard, that's what I'm thinking of.
And then there's Horny Man.
Yeah, and then
man
who can't talk to women.
Anti-horny man.
Anti-horny man.
They are the yin and
Oh my God. Can you not bring my aunt into this?
Anti-horny man. Oh no. Oh brother.
Oh brother, where art thou?
Oh, my favorite Coen Brothers. No, actually that's Miller's Crossing.
I haven't seen it.
It's good.
I love how I think what's going on is just like this episode is so incredibly straightforward.
It's so,
that it's like we could plow through the entirety of it in about 5 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. You want to sum up? Plane crashes. There's wreckage everywhere. Everybody screams. Kate stitches Jack up. We see everybody briefly. Kate, Jack, and Charlie decide to go to the cockpit. They go see the pilot. They get a radio from him. This monster takes the pilot, and everybody runs from the monster.
And that's it.
That's the episode. That's the hour.
That's the hour.
To be fair, this is the first hour of a 2-hour episode.
Yeah, absolutely. And they do establish a lot. I mean, if it's all new, then it's like that. You don't want them to establish more because they establish that there's a monster.
Exactly.
They establish that this is our band of misfits.
Exactly.
And we sort of dealt with some dynamics a little bit.
Exactly.
So it worked in that sense, but I mean, when you've talked in depth about all of those things already,
exactly,
it definitely doesn't give you a lot to play with.
How does okay, you know what? I want to talk about how the way this episode ends, and then we'll talk about how you felt about this episode in general. The episode ends with our 3 boys running away. Everybody gets separated, and we focus on Kate alone. She kind of sifts her way into a bamboo thicket, screams out for Jack. She's like panicking, hyperventilating, crying, and she starts to stutter out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And when it's done, she runs into Charlie, and Charlie's like, I don't know where Jack is. We got separated. So they go off, and they find a little pilot's badge or something, one of those like ornaments you find on the pilot uniforms.
The wings.
Yes. They find that silver thing sitting in a puddle, and then the shot unfocuses, and we see in the reflection of the brown puddle, we see branches and then a hunk of something in there. That shot always stuck with me.
Yeah, really? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a crazy shot. One of several crazy shots in this whole
And then,
pilot.
like, they pan directly to the pilot, and it is, like, a very, very destroyed corpse.
It is a nasty, busted-up corpse.
There's a decent amount of, like, squirmy shit in this episode.
Yeah, all the, like, people getting bodied from the wreckage. There's a fellow who has just a hunk of shrapnel in his chest. And it's like and you can see him, like, breathing and stuff. It's, like, kind of crazy. There's another fellow who's missing a leg. And
that one sort of surprised me because that's like 5 minutes in, and it's like, okay, this is how we're starting off.
Yeah.
And then what? You're just gonna go to fucking I can't do taco night after that?
Yeah, it's really buck wild. There's definitely a moment where like Kate says like I think when Kate's stitching up Jack, Kate's like, I know how you're being so calm. I would have just run away. And we were all like, yeah, that's true, isn't it?
You would have.
You would.
Yeah. We know you.
We know you, Kate. We don't really have a sense of Jack yet. This is the best we've seen of Jack.
Yeah, this is actually.
And the only other character we really dive into is Charlie.
Yeah.
And we also know Charlie's a shitty piece of shit.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't even like explore him very much.
No.
It sort of just shows him being like
a dope.
Exhausted.
Yeah, being an exhausted
and not
dope.
helpful.
Yeah.
There were two specific scenes that I wrote down about here, and I wanted to mention. The first is there's this weird scene the first night on the island. Jack and Kate are by a fire, and Jack has this really intricate airplane made out of a leaf.
Yes, thank you for mentioning this.
He's just going like, all right, so we must have been at about 4,000 feet, and then we hit an air pocket, and we dropped 200 feet, and then I blacked out. And it's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
How did you know the state of this commercial flight up until your blackout?
You don't know any of these things. You are so full of shit.
As if I'm putting my as soon as that seatbelt light goes on, I'm putting my headphones in and I am zoning the hell out.
Exactly.
Like, what are you doing?
Jack, he's like, the whole time he's like, yeah, I think we're at about 3,200 feet right now.
I also absolutely adore his plane made of a big leaf.
It's crazy.
It's so funny.
So nice.
It's so nice. It's so well made.
Yeah.
He clearly like... It's like, you know what? You saved enough lives that I think you can take a second to make a fun little plane out of a leaf.
Yeah, exactly. And he's obviously like really proud of it.
Yeah, he's like, look at this, guys. Pretty good, eh? I'm willing to bet the rest of it he was just making up. He was like, we were probably at around 4,000. 4,000.
Like, you must think that on the other end of it, Kate is there just being like, this dude is so full of shit.
Yeah, he's just like, he'd save too many lives for me to say anything, but I gotta. I just can't believe this guy. not exactly appropriate for me to call him out with all the dead bodies everywhere. But
exactly.
There's another thing. There's a lot of corpses in this episode.
A lot of corpses. There's probably like 30, 40 on-screen corpses.
Yeah, there's like a scene where like Jack like looks into the fuselage and we see it from the perspective of inside the fuselage, and there's like dangling hands and stuff. A lot of corpses.
Kate takes the shoes off a corpse.
Yeah, and it's like played harrowingly. It's like, oh, she has to do this because she needs shoes.
This actually relates to my other note that I had. While Kate is taking the shoes off of a corpse, she looks over and John Locke is there.
Yes.
And he's looking like pretty ragged. He has a big gash across one of his eyes. And then it goes back to Kate. Then it goes to John Locke. And he opens his mouth to smile, and his mouth is an orange. There's an orange inside his mouth.
It's really good. That's the first time John Locke interacts with anybody.
Exactly.
And it's so, like, and it's like, and Kate's just like, not the time.
She doesn't like it.
Kate reacts as if like it's an inappropriate thing to do because it kind of is, and Locke kind of like realizes like the same thing, and he just kind of like looks down and like swallows the orange.
So I have written here just Locke is bad at flirting. That's what I wrote for that note.
He is bad at flirting.
Yeah.
It's not a good first impression. God. Okay. So I think like it's pretty like well known that this pilot is a good pilot. This pilot is good at establishing the immediate stakes of Lost. But how does this pilot stand in the context of the grand fucking mess that is Lost?
Awesome. Like head and shoulders above everything else I've seen. Because it's like this pilot still, when I watched it, it was like, okay, I think this gives me hope that this is going to be a good, interesting show that like makes sense and stuff. Yeah. And I can like remove it from what happened in the later seasons because I don't think they really knew what was going to happen in the later seasons.
That is absolutely fair. They were clearly making this pilot off the seat of their pants, and it really just like, I don't know, it feels like a good ass pilot, and it hooks you in, and you're just like, what's going to happen to these characters?
Yeah, it makes me want to watch more. So that's great.
Yeah, absolutely. It just feels so. It feels so much different than the show it would become. Not just in like, and I'm not just talking in terms of like, you know, it becomes a show about how heaven and hell is the island or whatever, and it becomes a show about time travel and mercenaries and shit. Even like later in the season, it still like doesn't. It still feels like kind of a different show. It feels like. It just feels like a small little contained drama about about how crazy a plane crash would be. That's like pretty much all it is. Is it just like a plane crashed? That's like crazy and gruesome.
And that's interesting. And that's like it's imaginative. You can think like, wow, what if that I was on a plane before?
Exactly.
Like, what if? Whereas as it goes on, it gets further and further from reality and less relatable. And the characters' stories just get weaker too because they start running out of things to talk about.
Exactly. And like, yeah, you have all these like, you have these scenes where like everybody's interacting, everybody's kind of discussing like, you know, well, is rescue coming? I'm not gonna worry about it because rescue's probably gonna come. Why wouldn't rescue come? Well, actually, maybe this, you know, we were kind of off course in this. Like you have like scenes where it's like 6 or 7 people are talking to each other, trying to just sort out what it is, and then like by the end of it, it's like it's like Sawyer and Hurley playing ping pong and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It's a very, very different show,
and I don't think that it's necessarily bad that it became a different show.
It's a natural transition that had to take place, and I really do enjoy aspects of what it becomes later.
Yeah.
But, I think, like, immediately following the plane crash is sort of the most interesting thing that they had to work with.
Yes.
And they knocked it out of the park.
They really did.
And then, but it's like the rest is just a bit weaker in a sense.
It, like, I mean, it's just a tight hour of television, if you ask me. And, I don't think, I kind of always want to crack wise about Lost. And this show comes along and gives me a rock solid pilot that it's hard to make fun of.
How do you deal with that?
Yeah.
Guess you just gotta call it like you see it.
You just call it like you see it. Sometimes a show has a good episode.
Out of 10.
Out of 10, I'd give it like a 8 or 9.
I do 8.5.
All right, nice.
It's good.
It hooks you. The thing about it is that I've said this before, and I like that Lost becomes a fucking batshit crazy mess.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's part of it at this point. It's like it is so much more than what the show started out as.
Exactly.
And that's interesting.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. It's as much as like the batshit crazy part of Lost is Lost is also a show about people trying to figure out how to get by on a plane crash.
Yeah.
And it is never more so than in this episode.
Yeah, exactly. But like you were saying, it's like I do also really enjoy that it got fucked eventually, and I mean, we wouldn't be sitting here talking about Lost so in depth if it were just a good show about a plane crash.
If it were just a good show about like not hyper realistic, but like a semi realistic show about like trying to survive and get by on an island.
Yeah.
And learning about these characters and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that's cool. But it's definitely way funnier that it becomes a time travel show.
Yeah, this incredibly bizarre thing.
It's a hell of a thing. I love the television show Lost.
Me too.
Good show. Good episode.
Good Lost.
And that's the very first hour of the show.
There it is.
There it is. And that's I kind of was like a little nervous about doing that this early, because now I'm like thinking like, this was brought up by a friend. What is our very last episode going to be?
Some like shitty
nothing
episode.
It's going to be a shitty nothing episode.
Yeah.
I was worried about that because like we're going to like, do we save the finale for that? Do we like do the finale for halfway through? Like what do we do?
I like the thought that just like the show Lost, this podcast could like, by episode 60, like they really devolved into a fucked up, awful thing.
Yep. I agree.
Because we ran out of every important episode to watch.
Yeah, that's true. There's definitely like, I'm going to estimate that there's 10 rock solid episodes of Lost.
Yeah.
And then some more that are like, this is pretty decent and fun.
Yeah.
And then maybe like 40 of the hours are trash.
Yeah. I want more of the trash. I hope we end on the trashiest of trash. Oh my God.
Well, no, we already watched the Nikki and Paolo episode.
That was the worst thing I've ever seen.
It was so good.
That was so bad.
It was crazy. Anyways.
All right.
That's the episode. We watched the episode of Lost. We'll watch another one next week. And you can listen to us. You can like our Facebook page. I actually forgot to update the Facebook page for last week.
The Island Shuffle.
Yeah, the Island Shuffle is what we are called. The podcast. Like us on iTunes, subscribe, and give us a 5-star rating.
RSS?
If you'd like. Yeah, probably. I think.
RSVP.
RSVP to our RSS. Do people still use RSSs anymore?
I don't think they do, but I like that we still can.
We oughta if we aren't.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyways, thank you for listening to our sweet little show. I'm Bean.
And I'm James.
And like we say at the end of every episode, yeah.